That's what she said. Alright, so let's talk about Macintosh, which they call Apple. If you ever look at Macintosh Apple, and you ever look at some of the other OSs, uh, everyone's like iOS, and if you ever look at all the wording, it's very, how you want to say, directed towards person, personalized, as they say. But it also states in the temporary agreement on some temporary license that it belongs to someone else. So, one, if you have a computer and whatnot, it should never be personalized towards anyone. But what I was saying was, is if you download a Dell, and it was coming down as iOS, uh, which is interesting, and I was trying to get a backup copy through an Apple computer, and the funny part was that I did a simple test and downloaded the recovery tools and whatnot, and I tried to move that into a USB card that was attached. It won't allow me to. Try to copy it over, won't allow me to. It kept rejecting it. Then I decided, okay, I'll try another hard drive. This hard drive's been on this Apple computer before and whatnot, so I'll try to hook that up and get that to go in. Wouldn't work. Now, I do remember, I believe Dell saying that uh, sometimes that happens. It's like, okay, sometimes that happens. And why does that happen? And it's because you need to download it through the computer that you're trying to recover. That's like saying, let me put this, that's like saying, let's go swim in a swimming pool without water and go splash. You can't splash with no water. So that means that the computer is working and whatnot. And let's just say for whatever reason I want to do a recovery, but I can't get into the Windows program. Let's say you lock yourself out. Easiest way to undo if you don't know your password, or if someone hacked you and changed your password, is to use a recovery disk, or maybe even the OS disk, to see what options you have. Now I also know that some refer to a smart card on a Dell, or the smart card choices, and it's kind of like, why does a Dell have a smart card? As far as I know, it doesn't. So if it has a smart card or a smart recovery feature on the chip, SD, and whatnot, and it don't work. It works 1 minute, then it don't work. Then it works another minute, don't work. And then all of a sudden you're back to your basic OS, where you either downloaded the recovery while it was working, or you just get screwed. Which is interesting, because the password I put in mainly doesn't work now, so I gotta think about how I'm going to do this. Now, on a Windows program, I could just simply download it into a USB, and that'd be done. Tried a direct download into the USB and a hard drive, didn't work. And someone said you got limits on how many downloads you can do per serial number of a laptop. But if I never downloaded the recovery tools or the OS copy, then in the sense of before, then why is it cheaping out and executing it'll execute a download, then it'll delete itself if you download too many copies, which is freaking stupid. A denial of download would be easier. At least then I know I have to pay for it. But as some things are undone from 1980, that was done by so-called normal people, you're starting to realize some of your programs are right back to where it was. because you didn't do it correctly. It's not easy writing computer programs. You have this person try to deja vu you in a certain way of voodoo, and then it's like, okay, now you gotta put everything down, you gotta wait until the person stops being an idiot, or you gotta call the cops and have them arrested, and then they put them to sleep until you're done. Simple. Not really. But anyway, so the benefits of Apple. So let's just say, for instance, and I'm thinking that I've had this problem before, first download, you couldn't do it through an Apple for a Windows platform. And I'm not talking about reformatting. I'm talking about the fact of doing a download only. So if you have a friend, like this scenario, if you have a friend and he has a Windows program and he needs to use your Apple computer to download a Dell OS because he just totally screwed the pooch, on the sense of not screwing the pooch, but he blew his hard drive up, and he bought a new one, and he wants to reload the software. That's not possible through Apple. It's not to transfer it directly by download into a USB. That's the funny part, because that's like 1940 crap. This still needed to be fixed. Microsoft's been out a lot longer than you guys have known it. Just like if you ever look at some of the 1980 movies, which they claim are 1990s and 2000s, somehow they just get today's date on it. Oh, the last 3 months' dates on it. Oh, this is digitally remastered. You mean it's been recopied into a digital format? Not really digitally remastered. But anyway, back to that. That's one of the off benefits of Windows and not an Apple. Now, Windows, you can use a certain program to actually front an Apple OS, which is VMware. So you can actually put, except for Snow Leopard, the Snow Leopard's a pain in the ass, and it does not have VMware, and that's why you can't VM it. You can actually VM all the old Panthers, Lions, and whatnot, because they were more stable OSs than the current Capite and all that crap. So I'll tell you what an OS requires for an update. So you can sit back and crap yourself. This is a problem with Apple and Windows. Windows was told to sit on its program, which was, you find a platform after you update, reprogram, update, refine, fix. So if we went to 95 to 98 to XP, got the XP and said it worked perfectly. Computer's fast. He still had a decent OS and everything else. A decent OS and everything. And the speed was there. So if that's the case and everything, oh, someone's crying about me dropping my camera and me being on camera. Go tell the cop, because the cop can hear me too. But anyway, so you go to that, and you actually, on a few other videos, you can see my face, because I accidentally show my face. So go have another beer, or maybe another bit of, crack, maybe some marijuana, because we all know that certain people in town buy it from Grampian Boulevard, from the judges, the pathonetary, the magistrates. You can get it locally at Lycoming County Police, if you pay them enough. I mean, $10,000 for a 40 is expensive, but shit. If it's the good stuff. Oh, my bad, Lycoming College. They probably didn't know it, so we'll just say that. That's how it is done in LA, trust me. LA, Florida, NYC, Connecticut, certain states. Most of the problem is undercover part. They just don't like to hand out opium or angel dust or crack cocaine. Even though they have thought and do think about saying screw PD stuff, just rate it and sell it. But anyway, back to the talk. If you try that with Apple, Apple has no VMware. You have to download Windows to get VMware to work. Downfall of Apple. That's not VM capable. So some will say, well, how is it not VM capable if it has a smart drive and a Verizon and an AT&T considered a digital hard drive? Actually, in Apple, it uses a single spinning disk that is well balanced and well secured. Now, some will say it doesn't because you can't hear it scratching and all that. But if you put a spring and a pressure system on it, you'll never hear it bounce because it's made not to bounce. Now let's go back to the other side in the sense of a smart card, which is no more than an SD with a program manager. So either which way, it's either an SD and whatnot, or it's one or the other. But if you use 64 megabytes correctly and run a Linux mobile versus Verizon Apple mobile and split the hard drive, and you can actually run VM on Linux. So it's interesting. Another guy was like, how do you run VM on Linux? Well, you just simply download the Windows VM. Because Linux is a little bit more Windows friendly than Apple was. So that's one possibility of where Linux beats Apple and Windows beats Apple. Now the other problem with Windows is if you ever go into the control panel and go into all the services through the admin, and that's that maintenance side where it says administrator. No one likes to go into it. Most of your stuff should be turned on, like your SD, USBs, your headphones, HDMI and stuff. That all should be turned on. And normally it's set for automatic, non-manual. But I've been catching Windows programs that are open. When I say open, you type in config. Some like to say config safe, but it's not config safe. You type in config safe, your OS will go in config safe. You type in config, and it'll come up with all these other options on how your computer starts up and whatnot. And if you go into there, you can actually shut off a lot of the programs that dog down the DOS and whatnot in Windows. Can you do that in Apple? No, Apple requires a lot of programming to shut off a lot of startup programs. Some say it doesn't. But I haven't really got to experiment too much with an Apple, considering that every time I get an Apple, it's either dead in the box or it's limping so bad that it's ridiculous, and you almost feel sorry for doing anything to it. But the other problem of it is actually, I believe Apple also has another form of architecture in behind it. I just can't remember what architecture it was. That tends to slow it down. But anyway, let's see what else. Apple is now Windows friendly. Otherwise, you had to use Apple Notes and all that stuff. That was nice to look at. Has a lot of options, but not very heavily used in the business side or the college side. It's definitely not used in defense side of things so heavily. It's a slower version, but they say it's more stable, but not really. If you got the critical wheel of death going on, as some refer to it, the color wheel of death. But at the same time, all the processors here on Windows, Apple, and Linux are modified. And when I say modified, it's the flow rates that are modified to slow people down. Because a lot of people here want to blame Australia, and now I gotta exclude Japan, China, and North Korea, South Korea from not doing something, because if you look at Safarion, it's a North Korean temporary service. It's supposed to be a company. It's supposed to take their industry secretively and form a company and whatnot in South America, under the idea that the U.S. ain't allowed to mess with them, because the U.S. likes to choke people in the sense of, you either do it this way or that way, or we'll choke your business to death by sending in people to mysteriously shoot you when you're not looking. I mean physically, yeah. Or we'll come in with a union and beat the crap out of you. Gives you an insight of where the U.S. is with labor. So if someone from Europe would bring in a group of people, and the union would beat up someone who was from Europe, and a person never got in trouble from the union, because that's what mainly happens, but the other person gets in trouble for trying to incite a fight, and your little friend from the union gets beat up mysteriously, but no one knows how. Would that be a crime, or wouldn't that be a crime? In some senses, it wouldn't be a crime if you're ganging up on people. Which was the other problem in 1980, was gangs being formed inside NYC, Florida, California, Nevada, Arkansas, and Pennsylvania, to rule the country. Easy enough to settle. Very easy to settle. And it was partially settled, to see if the gangs, the union, can put their money where their mouth was, and went home crying because they got hurt. In more ways than one. But anyway, let's go back to Windows and Apple. So, you can play Apple games, but everyone's like, oh, they're a bit expensive. Full version games are not that expensive at $80 to $160. When I say full version, you're talking 50 to 60 to 80 to 90 levels, where you would normally pay, if they offered this in the U.S. or the United States or even Canada, more than likely you're going to pay $560 for a full version. Because normally you only get about 3, 4, 5, 6 levels with the crack, I call them crack versions of games. Because you're really stupid if you're paying $40 for 6 levels of Call of Duty. I like Call of Duty, don't get me wrong, but if you're only doing 6 to 10 levels for $60, it's more like a crack, like you're on crack, to pay that much. Call of Duty, if you really want to know the price in Call of Duty's full version, and this is probably where you're going to crap yourself, but it's not for sale, is somewhere around $560 million, because it's already been written, drawn, and done. So, some people bitch about that. Okay, what else? I can't really think of too much that Apple can really do. I mean, you type in Apple software, a lot of marketing software, and whatnot, not profit. So you got marketing, they say you can do business, it's more secure, this, that, and the other thing, but you got the antivirus hacking the crap out of the computer. So how's that more secure? it's not Windows friendly, and it is somewhat Linux friendly, but it takes a lot of programming to even get some of their so-called Linux Apple programs to work. A little easier now, but I don't know, it just doesn't really appeal. But when you buy a 3.8 gigahertz processor, you're not buying a 3.8 gigahertz internet processor. Another difference, which Intel and AMD, they know about them, they just can't get their hands on them to make them. So an internet processor is actually bigger, faster, and a crap load more expensive. So if you're getting an i5, and an i5 starts out just at a build rate of $486 to $580 to $600 to $700 just for a desktop processor. It's not internet rated, even though it can do internet, do the internet. An internet processor, give or take how much it is, and depending on what country you're in, can run you $10,000 easy. Maybe even 20,000. They're a bit bigger than the ones you're putting out, and they don't come any smaller. Because every time they run in smaller, we burn in boards. Literally burn a hole in the computer board. That Linux guy up there, really, I don't know what I want to call him yet. And I know it's not slander if I'm sitting here and you're saying stuff and I can hear it, so I'm just simply commenting on your rude comments. But anyway, so we go back to Linux, seeing Linux. To me, Linux, Windows, and Apple is technically the same thing, except Windows has more such to offer as far as a real copy of the program. Microsoft non-Windows is more beneficial than the Microsoft slash Windows version, which is nice, but it's more of it puts the options to a limit. Like if you go in, like I said, you go in through the control panel, the admin settings, go in the services, go down through the services, you'll notice some services that you need but you can't access. You can't change them. And there's 4 services they block that they shouldn't block, but if they don't block them, then you'll have access that's unneeded, like the internet. When I had a computer dropped off in Trout Run, they had the worldwide internet wide open. You could purchase the internet, but if you had the computer, you could actually become your own provider, which was a mistake. You don't put that out there on a laptop when you can become your own provider, and technically it was considered free access at that point when they do that. Which is a big no-no, because you have to pay the fees and stuff. If you get caught, it's a $50,000 fine, non-negotiable by Europe, on and against the so-called United States government. And I've seen that fine go from $50,000, which is mainly 50,000 euros, to 500,000 euros. Like it's nothing.